Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to jump into something pretty fascinating. It starts with a name that, well, if you're into gaming, especially certain kinds of games, you'll probably know instantly. The name is Sosnovka. Now, for a lot of you, hearing that probably brings up images of intense firefights, maybe parachuting onto an island, trying to be the last one standing.
Battle royales, yeah, big time.
Exactly. But here's the thing, and this is what we're diving into today. That same name, the one tied to this like high-stakes virtual military zone, it also belongs to something completely different in the real world, something actually quite peaceful and natural.
Yeah, they're really interesting contrast.
So our mission today, using the sources you've given us, is to explore that. How does one single name bridge that gap between this fictional war zone and a real-world natural wonder? We're going to unpack the layers, look at the connections, the whole story behind the name.
And it's genuinely fascinating when you dig into it. You have this simple word, its basic meaning, and then you see how it just branches out into these like totally separate but compelling stories. One real, one completely imagined, but maybe inspired by reality too.
Inspired, yeah, that's a good point we'll get to.
And the sources we have are great for this. We've got everything from, straightforward geographical facts to analysis of pop culture, like the game. It lets us connect these dots that you probably wouldn't normally think link up. It shows how much our real and fictional worlds can actually overlap, sometimes just through a name.
Totally. It's like finding those hidden threads,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning, the foundation. What does Sosnovka actually mean? Because understanding that is, well, it's pretty key to the whole thing.
Right. So linguistically, it comes from Slavic languages, Russian, Polish, Ukrainian, that whole family. And Sosnovka, pretty directly, means something like pine forest or maybe pine village.
Pine forest, okay. Simple enough, rooted in nature.
Exactly. It describes a common landscape feature. Sosna means pine tree. So Sosnovka is basically Pineville or Pine Woods.
And here's where it gets really interesting. That very simplicity, that connection to pine trees, is why the name is just so common all across Eastern Europe.
Oh, incredibly common.
Like we're talking hundreds of villages, settlements, little places in Russia alone called Sosnovka or something very similar.
Yeah.
If you looked at a really detailed map, you just see it popping up over and over again.
Absolutely. It's not some unique, fancy name. It reflects the geography. Pine forests were, and still are, widespread in many of these regions. So when people settled, they often named the place after the most obvious local feature. Simple, descriptive naming.
It tells you something about the history, right? About the connection people had to the land around them.
Precisely. And it's not just Russia. You find towns, villages, rivers, lakes with similar names, variations on Sosna throughout Ukraine, Belarus, Poland too. It's kind of woven into the geographical fabric of the region.
So it's not just a name, it's almost like a geographical marker itself.
You could say that, yeah. It signifies a certain kind of place, usually rural, probably forested, maybe a bit remote. It carries that connotation, that sort of environmental DNA, you could say. Even if you don't speak the language, if you see it used in, say, a book or a film set there, it helps paint a picture.
Which makes it a really efficient tool for world building in fiction, doesn't it?
Definitely. If you want to quickly establish a setting in that part of the world, especially something maybe a bit rustic or even slightly isolated, Sosnovka is kind of a go-to. It feels authentic, even if it's generic in a way. It's often used in stories, especially military or espionage thrillers set during the Cold War or in post-Soviet times, to evoke that specific atmosphere.
Okay, so that cultural resonance, that sort of shorthand, that brings us neatly to its most famous fictional appearance. Let's unpack this. For many of you, like we said, your first encounter with Sosnovka was probably dropping onto a virtual island with a parachute.
Right. The Sosnovka Military Base in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. PUBG.
Yeah, PUBG. It's not just the location in that game. It's arguably one of the most iconic spots on the original map, Erangel.
Absolutely central to the Erangel experience for many players.
People even call the whole island, it's on Sosnovka Island, or sometimes Airport Island, because of the runway there. It's this separate piece of land south of the main continent, cut off by water.
That separation is key.
Totally. Because you can only get on or off it using one of two specific road bridges. Unless you find a boat or risk a long swim, those bridges are the only way.
Which immediately creates these choke points, tactical nightmares or opportunities, depending on your perspective.
Exactly. It funnels everyone. So right from the start, if you choose to go there, you know it's going to be contested. It's designed for conflict.
And what's fascinating here is how it was designed visually. It wasn't just, generic military buildings thrown together. There's a very specific, real-world inspiration behind its look.
Ah, okay. Tell us about that.
The main visual anchor, the most dominant feature of the Sosnovka Military Base, is that gigantic sort of lattice work radar structure.
Oh, yeah, the huge thing you can see from miles away.
Exactly. That was directly inspired by a real piece of Soviet technology, the Duga radar system. There were a few of these, but the most famous one is near Chernobyl in Ukraine.
Chernobyl.
Yeah. It was this massive over-the-horizon radar, part of the Soviet missile defense early warning network. And it made this really distinctive tapping noise that radio operators picked up, which earned it the nickname.
The Russian woodpecker. Right, I've heard of that.
That's the one, the Russian woodpecker. So the game designers took that incredibly imposing, slightly sinister real-world structure and made it the centerpiece of their fictional military base.
Wow. That adds a whole layer of meaning, doesn't it? It's not just cool looking.
Not at all. It immediately gives the place a certain vibe. It hints at Cold War secrets, maybe radiation, forgotten experiments. It creates atmosphere just by being there.
And the rest of the base leans into that, too.
Oh, definitely. The whole environment is designed to reinforce that feeling. You've got other smaller radar dishes, missile silos that look, frankly, menacing, big empty hangars, rows of functional, kind of grim-looking barracks, a lot of the textures and the general state of decay, the overgrowth. It all strongly evokes the look and feel of the actual Chernobyl exclusion zone.
That sort of eerie, abandoned, slightly dangerous feeling.
Precisely. They wanted to create this mysterious, vaguely threatening Soviet military facility, and they used real-world visual cues, particularly from Chernobyl and the Duga radar, to achieve that very effectively.
It makes sense why players found it so compelling. It feels like it has a history, even if it's fictional. I read that many players didn't even realize the Soviet connection at first until they noticed the signs.
Yeah, apparently the Russian signs, like the one at the entrance actually saying "I Sosnovka," were a bit of an aha moment for some players, suddenly clicking that whole aesthetic into place. It sparked a lot of interest in the game's potential backstory.
So it's visually striking, has this cool backstory connection. But here's where it gets really interesting for gameplay. This isn't just scenery. It massively impacts how you play PUBG on that map. Players gave it a nickname, didn't they?
They did.
Death Zone.
Death Zone. Okay, sounds welcoming. Why?
Loot. Simple as that. High-value loot spawns. Sosnovka Military Base is consistently one of the best places on the entire Orangeal map to find top-tier gear right at the start of the match.
Like what kind of gear?
Well, you've got a really good chance of finding sought-after assault rifles, like the M416, which is super popular for its stability and versatility, or the hard-hitting M762, the barrel. And crucially, it's one of the few places where you might actually stumble upon a rare, powerful sniper rifle early on, like the M24.
Right, getting one of those early can completely change your game.
Absolutely. So the promise of that amazing loot acts like a huge magnet.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the best gear to get an edge, which means
everyone goes there. Exactly. It becomes one of the most popular or maybe notorious places to parachute into right at the beginning. Dozens of players often descend on this relatively small island simultaneously.
chaos.
Total chaos. Intense, immediate firefights break out everywhere as people land and scramble for the first weapon they can find. It's a real meat grinder.
So not for beginners then.
Generally not, no. Or at least not if you want to survive long. It tends to attract the more skilled players, or the very aggressive ones who thrive on that early action. You need confidence, good aim, quick thinking, and maybe a bit of luck to come out of Sosnovka alive and well-equipped.
Surviving that initial drop must feel like a major achievement.
Oh, definitely. If you manage to clear out the base, you're usually loaded with great gear and feeling pretty good about your chances for the rest of the match. You've already won a major battle.
But the danger isn't over even if you survive the initial drop, is it? Because of those bridges.
Right, the bridges. That leads to another famous or infamous tactical element associated with Sosnovka, bridge camping.
Ah yes, bridge camping. Sounds fun, if you're the camper.
Exactly. Because the island is only connected by those two narrow bridges, it's a perfect setup for ambushes. A team, or sometimes multiple teams, can get control of one or both bridge entrances on the mainland side, or even on the island side if they clear the base first.
And just wait.
And just wait. They set up defensive positions, using vehicles for cover, hiding in nearby structures, and basically pick off anyone trying to cross the bridge. Since the bridges are long and offer very little cover, anyone trying to drive or run across is incredibly vulnerable.
So if you landed on Sosnovka, got geared up,
Yeah.
but the safe zone starts shrinking towards the main island,
Ah.
you're potentially trapped.
Potentially, yes. Or facing a very, very risky crossing. It forces really tough decisions. Do you risk the bridge fight? Do you try and find a boat, which might not be available or might also be watched? Do you risk swimming, which is slow and leaves you exposed?
Man, that adds a whole layer of strategy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. It enriches the tactical depth of the map enormously. It's created countless memorable moments, desperate bridge assaults, clever flanking maneuvers, stalemates, huge multi-team battles centered just on controlling those crossings. It's a prime example of how level design, the actual geography of the map, directly creates specific, recurring gameplay scenarios and player strategies. Sosnovka isn't just a loot spot, its location and layout dictate movement and create conflict throughout the match.
Wow, okay. So that's the fictional Sosnovka. Intense, dangerous, rooted in real-world military history, but built for virtual combat. A death zone.
Pretty much sums it up.
So what does this all mean then when we compare it to the real Sosnovka? Prepare for a total vibe shift here. Because while gamers know Sosnovka as that military base, there's an actual place called Sosnowka Lake, or Jezioro Sosnowka in Polish, and it's worlds away from PUBG.
Completely different context, yeah.
We're talking about an artificial reservoir, a man-made lake,
Okay.
located in southwestern Poland. It's in a region called Lower Silesia Province.
A very picturesque part of Poland, actually.
Exactly. Geographically, it sits right at the southern edge of a place called the Jelenia Gora Valley. It's right next to a couple of villages. One is actually called Sosnowka, just spelled slightly differently, to the east, and another called Marseille to the north. And it's only a few kilometers from the city of Jelenia Gora itself.
So it's accessible part of the local landscape.
Definitely. And it's fed by actual rivers and streams. The Podgorna River is the main one, plus the Sonaik Stream and the Czerwonka River flow into it. So it's this engineered body of water, but it's integrated into the natural water system of the area.
Which raises an important question. Why build it? Why go to the trouble of creating a large artificial lake there? And the answer really highlights its importance.
Right, it wasn't just for looks.
No, not at all. Sosnovka Lake was formed by damming a mountain valley. This was a major engineering project. The main dam itself is about 1.5 kilometers long.
Wow, that's pretty big.
It is. And there's an auxiliary dam, too, about 300 meters long. They needed substantial structures to hold back the water. The lake they created is sort of oval-shaped, maybe 1.2 kilometers long by 1 kilometer wide, roughly. And it holds a massive amount of water, around 14 million cubic meters.
Okay, that sounds like a lot. What's that water for?
Two main, really crucial purposes. Firstly, flood control. Being in a valley near mountains, the area was presumably prone to flooding, maybe from snowmelt or heavy rains. The reservoir helps regulate the water flow downstream, protecting the surrounding areas, including Jelenia Gora.
Okay, flood control. Makes sense. What's the second reason?
Potable water. Drinking water. It's a primary source of clean water for the city of Jelenia Gora and the wider region. That huge volume, 14 million cubic meters, represents a vital resource for the local population.
Ah, so it's literally a lifeline for the city.
Absolutely, and that's why, unlike many artificial lakes which are built for recreation, Sosnovka Lake has very strict rules. Because it's a drinking water reservoir, things like swimming, boating, any kind of activity that could potentially contaminate the water are strictly forbidden. Protecting the water quality is the top priority.
That makes perfect sense. So the focus is purely functional flood defense and drinking water.
That's right. The construction itself took a long time, by the way. It started back in 1986 and wasn't fully completed and operational until 2001.
15 years. Wow, that's a serious commitment.
It really underscores the importance of the project for the region's infrastructure and well-being. It's a massive contrast to the fictional military base, isn't it? One designed for conflict and destruction, the other built over years for protection and providing a fundamental resource like water.
A really powerful contrast. Okay, let's unpack this. Functional, yes, but you mentioned it's in a picturesque area. So beyond its practical uses, this real Sosnovka is actually beautiful.
Oh, incredibly so. The setting is stunning. It's nestled right amongst these really lush green forests, literally at the foot of the Karkonoss Mountains.
The Karkonoss Mountains.
Yeah.
They run along the border with the Czech Republic, right?
That's them. A really beautiful range. And the lake is very close to the Karkonoss National Park, which is known for its natural beauty and conservation efforts.
And here's where it loops back, isn't it? The name, Sosnovka, pine forest.
Exactly. The name perfectly reflects the surroundings of the real lake. The dominant vegetation in the area is coniferous forest, lots of pine trees. So, unlike the fictional military base, the real Sosnovka Lake is literally situated in its namesake environment. The name feels completely natural and descriptive there.
That's a neat connection. So what does it actually look like?
Imagine this calm lake surface, like a mirror, reflecting those towering mountains and the deep green forests all around it. It creates this incredibly charming, peaceful landscape right there in the Jelenia Gora Valley. Very serene.
Sounds ideal.
It really is. And the views can be spectacular. Apparently, on a clear day, if you stand on top of the dam, which is quite impressive itself, you can see the entire sweep of the Karkonosze Range laid out in front of you.
The whole range, including the highest peak?
Including Snuka, yeah. That's the highest peak, over 1,600 meters. So you get this incredible panorama. It's quite a sight.
So even though you can't swim or boat, people still visit?
Absolutely. That natural beauty is a major draw. Tourists and locals come to walk along the shores. There are paths, I believe, have picnics. Just sit and enjoy the scenery, do some sightseeing, breathe the fresh mountain air. It's appreciated for its tranquility and its stunning backdrop.
So it has this geographical importance, this vital function for water and safety. And it's a tourist spot because of its beauty, and it's ecologically significant as a protected water source.
Precisely. It ticks a lot of boxes. It's a place that embodies natural beauty and essential human infrastructure working together, hopefully harmoniously, a world away from the PUBG death zone.
Totally. Okay, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really covered some ground, haven't we? Starting with just a word, Sosnovka, meaning pine forest. Then seeing how that common name got picked up and turned into this iconic, dangerous military base in a huge video game, drawing inspiration from real, slightly grim Cold War history, like the Duga radar.
The fictional embodiment.
Right. And then discovering its real-world manifestation as this vital, beautiful, peaceful reservoir in Poland, nestled in actual pine-covered mountains.
From the death zone to the life source, you could say.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The contrast is just immense. The fictional Sosnovka is all about conflict, high-value weapons, tactical domination. The real Sosnovka Lake is about protection, providing water, preserving natural beauty.
Yet the connecting thread is still there, that original linguistic root, pine forest, which ironically is much more literally true for the serene Polish lake than it is for the concrete and radar towers of the military base.
That is ironic, isn't it?
And it also highlights how fiction borrows from reality. The game designers didn't just invent the look of the base out of nowhere. They specifically drew on real-world elements, like the Duga system, to give it that authentic, grounded feeling. Even though the location itself within the game's world is entirely fictional, that real-world echo makes the fictional space more believable, more immersive.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It just goes to show how much hidden depth can exist in things we take for granted, like a name on a map or in a game.
Absolutely.
Sosnovka becomes this cultural touchstone. It starts with a simple meaning, gets repurposed and totally reimagined in popular culture, reaching millions who might never know its original meaning, but somehow it still retains echoes of its roots, especially when you discover the real place.
Layers upon layers of meaning.
Exactly. And that's the big takeaway for you, listening. This deep dive shows how those layers are everywhere, often just hiding in plain sight. Exploring them, like we just did with Sosnovka, is kind of a shortcut to being better informed, to understanding the hidden stories behind everyday things. It makes you think, doesn't it? What other names, what other places that you encounter in games, books, films, even just on the news, might have these surprising real-world connections or unexpected origins?
It definitely encourages a more curious look at the world, both real and fictional, which leads nicely into a final thought, perhaps. This raises an important question for you to ponder. How much of the world building in our favorite entertainment, whether it's games, movies, or books, is subtly rooted in real-world geography, language, and history? How does uncovering these real-life connections deepen your appreciation for the fictional worlds you explore?
That's a great question to leave everyone with. Think about the virtual or fictional places you love. What real-world seeds might be hidden there? Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.